The spell of bias. The screen displays a beautiful kingdom with towering castles in the distance, mechanical flying machines and magical glows floating in the air. The three main characters show off their skills in different places. Ellie, dressed in a tutu, she is repairing a large robot. Wrench in hand, her expression focused and confident. Parts are scattered around her, but she handles them with ease like an expert. Lena, dressed in a gorgeous princess dress, she sat in front of the computer, her expression serious as she wrote code. Her fingers quickly flew across the keyboard as the screen flashed with magical symbols. Phoebe, dressed in a lab coat and holding a chemical bottle in her hand. She is making observation on a set of liquids that are changing colors. In front of her was a chemical lab bench surrounded by various bottles and jars, the liquids in the bottle glowing with colorful light. They arrive at the kingdom's announcement plaza, where a huge magical bulletin board automatically scrolled a new message, announcing the launch of the kingdom's intelligence challenge. But the rules said prints only. The three girls stood under the bulletin board with stunned faces. Ellie says, "White men only, so he's afraid we will enter." Lena says, "He uses rules to hide his bias." Phoebe says, "We are going into the challenge system to see what he's hiding in the code." The three girls snuck deeper into the library and found the system terminal where the wizards set up the tournament. Lena opens the console. A bizarre magical code emerged on the screen, a line that reads, "Restricted access if gender is female." Lena says he literally wrote the gender into the system permissions. It's not even a contest, it's an exclusion. Ellie says, "There is no such thing as defeating magic with magic, but it is possible to defeat their code with ours." Phoebe says, "It turns out that the spell is actually a line of code in the rules of the game." As the girls tried to break out the system, the screen suddenly flickered and the wizard appeared on the screen. He offered them a tempting option: to become a privileged internal user of the system and participate in the game as a special user, as long as they are willing to remain silent and not question the rules. The wizard said, "You can stay, you don't have to dismantle the system, as long as you stop asking where the rules come from." Phoebe says, "That's the kind of cooperation they want, pretending to be fair." Lena says, "Getting into the system isn't about privilege, it's about changing it." Ellie says, "We are not going to be a tool to maintain prejudice, we are going to rewrite the system." The girls gathered in the room. The table is full of books and drawings. They are discussing how to break the programming curse of the magical wizard. Ellie says, "We have to break the programming curse set by that wizard who thinks it's impossible for a girl to solve the puzzle." Lena says, "We must join forces and use our skills to defeat him." Phoebe says, "He underestimated us." Then they walked towards the wizard's castles. In the distance, the castle looms, surrounded by dark clouds. Ellie says, "This place doesn't look very friendly." Lena says, "We have to go in anyway." Phoebe says, "We are ready." Ellie faced a huge mechanical door. The door has a complex system of gears and locks. She is using tools to repair and adjust the mechanism. Lena says, "Ellie, are you really sure they will open?" Ellie says, "No problem, just give me a minute." Suddenly, the door opened. Inside the door is a huge computer screen with a complex codes and magical symbols. In front of Lena was a magical console that she was trying to break the wizard's program curse. Lena says, "These magical codes are complicated as hell, but I can work it out." Suddenly, Lena says, the girls arrive in the room covered in a poisonous fog. The air filled with a lavender smoke that made it impossible to see anything. There was a blank slip of paper suspended in the center of the room, seemingly devoid of information. Phoebe looks at it closely and then makes the glow potion on the spot. She carefully poured the liquid from the bottle into a small chemical container. The color-changing liquid giving off a green light around her. Phoebe says, "This paper is blank now. Let me make a glow-in-the-dark potion to make it fluoresce the code." Phoebe says, "This fog is not a poison, it's a barrier, a carrier of hidden information." The wizard hid the code to access the system in a chemical reaction between the smoke and the reagent. "Just spray my glowing potion onto a blank sheet of paper and it will reveal." The girls found the wizard. He looked a little worse for wear, his expression appearing panicked. The girl says, "Wizard, why do you put up this barrier? Don't you understand that STEM contains all gender?" The wizard says, "I'm afraid if you succeed and prove all the prejudice I always believe wrong, then I will be nothing. I'm just afraid of being suspicious, afraid of facing my own inadequacy." The girl says, "Let's rebuild the game mechanics together." The girls pour the wizard with them, and together they walk into the room covered in ancient mirrors. The mirrors reflect not only their own fears but also the wizard's moment of failure, shame, and being crushed in his youth. The smoke clears and the mirror reflects not the enemy but the struggles of each person as they face the system. The wizard says, "It turns out that what I have been afraid to face is not you guys, but my unresolved past." The girl says, "We can face it together." The girl discusses, "This feels like a test, doesn't it? We can't let this false image break us. We know who we are. We have overcome a lot of obstacles and this is not exception." Working together, the girls and the wizard shattered their fears and doubts in the mirror and strengthened their resolve to continue on their journey. The girls walk further into the hall. The entire space is surrounded by a gray-blue mist with the image floating vaguely around them. A girl who fails an exam, a neglected science proposal, a girl being transferred from an experiment. Alice says, "So it wasn't a spell. Are they others' misunderstanding of us or our own self-doubt?" Lena says, "No, they are fragments of reality. prejudice we have implicitly picked up growing up. Phoebe says we are going to have to move on and see that real mechanism behind all this fog. Then they arrive at a towering tower, each floor inscribed with the words like rules, tradition, history, standardized tests, authoritative voice, and so on. Phoebe says it's not that we aren't smart enough, we were excluded from the criteria from the beginning. Alice says this tower was built with knowledge and judgment, but who set the rules? Lena says, because historically there has been very little of us within the people involved in making the rules. The rules have not been designed for our needs. They walk through the tower and discover that hidden underneath is a vast and complex web of prejudice, each thread connecting a conversation, a regulation, an institution, a social norm. Alice says it wasn't anyone maliciously trying to stop us. It was some for your own good exhortation that grew up like a silken thread, binding our curiosity, our voices, and our ambitions layer by layer. Lena says it's not that we are not good enough, it's just that a lot of rules were made without considering our existence. Phoebe says we have to find out how to loosen it. At the center of the web of prejudice is a beating core sphere of people's fear, shame, and self-denial. Alice says that's the source of systematic bias. It's not malice, it's a collection of unease. Lena says a lot of people are afraid of changing the status quo, of losing privilege, and of being proved wrong, of the embarrassment of failure. Phoebe says we can't fix it by breaking it. We have to replace it with a new belief. The girls are projected into a real world. In the classroom, the girls' voices are muffled. In the lab, they are assigned to take notes. In competition, their ideas are always considered not bold enough. In a boy-dominated lab, Alice says teachers always ignore girls' voices. Lena says the girls in the lab were assigned to take notes and not allowed to operate the instruments. Phoebe says the competition jury always defaults to the boys' projects being more ambitious. Now they want to build a symbolic new rules lighthouse. Alice says we don't just want to be winners of the game, but we want to revise the rules of the game. Lena says giving girls the right to have a voice, the right to choose, the right to fail, and the right to explore. Phoebe says a group rule of game that everyone likes to play. Now they shine the light of the lighthouse throughout the kingdom, illuminating schools, laboratories, homes, castles, and the wizard was among them, as he removed his staff and assumed the form of an ordinary man. Finding Alice is more important than setting up enemies. The wizard says, I used to think I was in control, but I was really just a thread in that web. Alice says, you can now be part of the rebuild too. Lena says, breaking down bias is not about denying the past, it's about renewing the future. Phoebe says, together we can go far. Now everyone has the opportunity to be themselves. There's no who's for whom here, only the passion to explore together. They have learned that prejudice is not a spell, but a mechanism that has been maintained from generation to generation, but can also be changed from one generation to the next. The kingdom is restored to vitality and equality, no longer needing magic as an excuse to move forward with knowledge, reflection, and collaboration. Alice says, "We are not the end of the story, but the beginning of a change in reality." Lena says, "The world is now worth building with our own hands." Phoebe says, "Every girl's name has a chance to be the history of science." Prejudice is not fate, it is instead magic code that can be rewritten by us.